climate is the long-term average of the weather. We experience the climate as kind of the weather we would expect if we went to a place.
Most of the time we define like 30 years or more as climate or as climate reference periods. So from 1991 to 2020, this is kind of the climate reference period.
The climate is changing because things are on average getting warmer, because we are increasingly trapping more energy in the Earth's climate system, in the Earth's atmosphere.
There is the so-called greenhouse effect.
The energy that enters the Earth's climate system is almost exclusively provided by the sun, and that amount of energy incoming is not changing. The reason that the planet is heating up is because we're not able to radiate as much of that energy out into space as we used to be able to, because greenhouse gases redirect that energy back towards the Earth's surface.
It's actually a natural effect, but it's actually influenced today by humans' emissions, that we kind of burn fuel kind of to drive a car or something else. So it's actually stronger than it used to be.
Yeah, climate change is often also referred to as global warming. What is happening as a result of climate change is that the Earth's atmosphere is, on average, heating up over time. And so a very easy way for us to measure climate change is to just measure the average temperature of the atmosphere. And we can see that this has been steadily increasing since we started burning fossil fuels. The other way in which we could measure climate change is, of course, to measure the causes of climate change.
You can also measure kind of the greenhouse gases that are in the atmosphere now and compare it to earlier measurements and so on and so forth.
We can measure the concentration of CO2 in the atmosphere by capturing samples of it and shining light through it in a process called spectroscopy to see what ratio of the gas captured in this sample is carbon dioxide. We can also measure a number of other things, for instance, sea level rises or the retreat of polar ice caps.
Or you can see it also in the mountains. So if you go for a hike in Swiss Alps, you see that there were once glaciers and they're now reducing every year for some kilometers.
Which are also signs that the planet is warming up.
Most probably, yes, it will globally get warmer everywhere, but there are also regions where it might almost stay the same as today. So maybe in the Southern Ocean, there are areas that might stay the same. At least that's what the climate models that we're running predict. And there are regions, for example, like in the polar regions, where it will get really hotter than today. It is expected that drier regions get even drier, but it's also expected that already wet regions might even get wetter. We don't have like a desert all over the globe, but it might be that some regions get drier, yes. Yes, so extreme weather patterns might get even larger or heavier or whatever, and more often.
Your business is probably affected by the weather, whether you know that or not.
Yeah, almost everyone is affected by the weather. Of course, there are sectors that are more affected than someone sitting in front of his computer in his room.
There are some really obvious candidates for businesses which are affected by the weather pretty directly, but also anything in a consumer industry, anything with a human element. You know, people respond to the weather. And when people respond to the weather, their behaviour changes and they maybe buy more sausages to go grilling in the summer or more ice cream. If you're relying on fairly typical weather conditions for your business in the next year or the next 50 years, then your business will be affected by climate change. Those typical weather conditions are going to change over time. For some sectors, though, that's going to be a really drastic change, and we're going to see significant impacts, particularly, I would say, on industries like
agricultural sector will be affected more if it's over a longer time period dry, or if it's over a long time period wet, or if flooding happens or whatever.
Aviation, where the Gulf Stream speeding up and slowing down will potentially prevent flights from being able to make it across the Atlantic in a single stop without stopping to refuel.
And then as well the insurance sector, of course,
where the increased frequency of these extreme events like extreme floods, hurricanes, heat waves are going to have serious consequences for the viability of infrastructure and the costs associated with insuring them.
but also energy sector and so on and so forth.